that as it was taken in different ways by different peoples, it means that some measures that were adopted were quite relevant to the principles that was given by Gandhiji, and some of the people they started bringing about a kind of aggressive kind of attitude toward the British government when they marched in the streets, okay, and they started revolting. Now it was seen that it was such a condition and chaos that people in anger mood they started burning public places. They started burning police station, post offices, government buildings, even railway lines and telegram posts were destroyed. And on that words, it was seen that on the roads there was a quite large processions of violent activities that started taking place. Okay, now to this, the army was called to crush the revolt, and many of the people they were killed when the police started, the British policemen started firing on them, and the movement was severely crushed within a very short period of time. But still, this Quit India movement it laid a foundation, and it laid a kind of significant upsurge, you can say, or fear in the minds of the British rule, that they understood that now the people of India is not as they were earlier. They are very much concise and precisely active in regarding to getting independence. Okay. Now the Quit India movement later laid a very strong foundation, and it was clear for the Britishers that their time in India was about to end. Okay. The national sentiments started growing. Now the British realized as the time has come, the independence that the people of India wanted was quite nearby, that they had to bring about. Now the thing was that the mantra that was given by Gandhiji was taken so strongly, because his sayings or his words, it brought about lot of significant hold in the minds of the people. So they were actively, most of the people were actively participating in these processes. Now the next is about the Indian National Army. Now as the government were able to crush down the revolt that started, that is the Quit India movement, after that there was hardly any political activity. Why? Because most of the leaders, as I told, it is stated here that most of the leaders were imprisoned by the British government, and there were no certain leaders who could bring about leadership situations or lead them in various different ways. So the national activity, however, surfaced outside India's boundary under the leadership of Subhash Chandra Bose, because there were quite of suppressions, there were quite of regressive activities that were done by the British government. So Subhash Chandra Bose, what he did is that he went outside India and started bringing about various activities that we are going to know and learn about it. Now he believed that the only way of India could get freedom now was to drive British out of India by the use of armed forces. Now on that process, on that thinking only, Subhash Chandra Bose resigned from the Congress in 1939 and formed a new party called the Forward Bloc. Okay. Now he decided to go abroad to join hands with the enemies of British and drive the British out of India. Now later on, what he did is that he started joining various important activities, and he started bringing about a kind of armed forces by joining the hands to those people who were against the British government or the Britishers. Now one of the various important enemies of during that time was the Japanese. Now objectives of the Forward Bloc that was formed by the formed under Subhash Chandra Bose was to get freedom from the Britishers by any means, then to rebuild India after independence under the principle of socialism, where economic equality, freedom of justice, equitable distribution of wealth, and etc. could be there, and to promote world peace. That means after independence, he was profounded, or he was trying to bring about peace in throughout the different parts of the world where each and every country has its own freedom. Subhash Chandra Bose was put under house arrest in Calcutta, but he managed to escape in 1941. Now he went to Russia, then to Germany, and finally came to Japan. He traveled various different places, and it is stated that he even went to Hitler in Germany to get his support, but he was quite depressed that the purpose did not serve, as he was not given that much importance, or Hitler did not give him that much importance in regarding to the freedom fight. Now in Tokyo, he took over the leadership of the Indian independence movement in East Asia from Ras Bihari Bose. Ras Bihari Bose, who was taking over certain movement activities in outside in Tokyo, when he reached, he was under Ras Bihari Bose, and under his leadership, slowly he took over the movement, that is Indian independence movement from Ras Bihari. It was taken by Subhash Chandra Bose, given to Subhash Chandra Bose. Now the Captain Mohan Singh, a former captain in the British Army, he organized the Azad Hind Fauj, that is the Indian National Army, and Subhash Chandra Bose became the supreme commander or the main leader of the Indian National Army. Now here there is a small story about how this army was forged. Like when there was war going on, there were various Indian soldiers who on behalf of the British Army were fighting, and they were captured abroad and they were imprisoned. Now Subhash Chandra Bose got those people out of the prison, and but in one condition. What was the condition? That these Indian soldiers would help him in regarding to getting freedom, and he started to bring about a sense of patriotic feeling in the minds of the people. And Captain Mohan Singh was one of the major person among those captured soldiers or imprisoned soldiers, who was later on released excuse me, who was later on released, and then under the leadership of Subhash Chandra Bose, Indian National Army, he was the supreme commander. Okay. In 1944, at a meeting in Singapore, Subhash Chandra Bose, known as Netaji, took an oath to liberate India, and that is the time he brought about few important slogans. One of them was, "Give me blood and I will give you freedom," he declared. The primary objective of INA was to what? To liberate India, to get freedom to India through the British rule, through armed struggle, that is by attacking the British Army through armed forces. Now Netaji brought about a new life and structure and a feeling of patriotism in the minds of the people, and then he also brought about a new zeal or enthusiasm in the INA. He ignited the imagination of his soldiers with passion, inspiring speeches. They were ready to lay down their lives for the liberation of their motherland. Now, in that, he battled a cry stating, "Delhi chalo." That means what? Let us march towards Delhi and get our place, what was ours, or get our motherland, which is ours. Then they started marching towards India with few of the Japanese army along with the Indians army who had joined the INA. In mid 1944, it stated that the INA crossed the Indo-Burma, that is now it is called as Myanmar, border, and liberated Impal and Kohima to a deafening and jubilant cries of Jai Hind and Netaji Jindabad. Now, when they marched towards, they started from the northeastern part of India, where they entered India from Burma, that is Myanmar, and slowly they captured quite a bit of distance inside. They started marching, and they captured various different places like Impal, Kohima in the northern eastern part of India. Now this states that how important Subhash Chandra Bose was and how he was marching towards a victory. But there came a situation where in a short period of time it was seen that the Japanese were attacked by the Americans. There was quite huge amount of bomb shelling that started in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, for which the Japanese troops that were helping the Indian soldiers had to revert back and go back to their own territories, protecting their own areas. Okay. Now this was a big downfall, and that was the time when the war that they had started came into a pause, and many of the Indians later on were captured. But still, Netaji Bose lives on his memories of success generations of the Indians. He was a true patriot who dedicated his life and the cause of passion, believed in India's freedom. He fired the imagination of nation with that intense patriotism, personal courage, and unwavering convictions and bold leadership. Now he restored the pride and dignity of India, and it's greatly admired and revered through his country even to this day. That is today. What it means is that even though the struggle that was started, or the passion that was started to free India through armed forces, was not achieved by Subhash Chandra Bose due to an unluck, you can say a bad luck that came across, but still it was considered that his contribution was not a small one, where his own part of thinking that he would liberate India was almost about to be fulfilled. But due to an unwanted circumstances that came across, because of which his armed forces were captured later on, and they were taken, and that struggle stopped. But his contribution was quite significant. The young youth were quite energetic, knowing about his activities, and they were very much inspired by Subhash Chandra Bose. Until today, Subhash Chandra Bose inspires a lot of youth in today's time, considering him one of the bold leaders, one of the very creative, profound son of our own motherland, India, and how he gave up his life fighting for the freedom of India. We'll be continuing in the next class with the other topics, whereas later on how the British government at last had to transfer the power from their hands to India, and the important changes that were brought about in regarding to the Indian independence. Okay, so this is all for today. I will be continuing with in the next class about various other important topics which states about the actual independence of India, which took place in 1947.